Alright guys, I have a question for you. Do you guys ever smell books? Let's talk about that. Hey guys, it's Sam with The Blind Life. So, I know that's kind of an odd question to intro a video, but that's what the topic of the video is today. Well, part of the topic of the video is smelling books. So, I watch the other low vision YouTubers, I watch their videos, and I'm often inspired by their videos. I was watching Casey's video yesterday. Casey, how Casey sees it. She posts on Sundays, by the way, every Sunday, check her out. And she was doing this pretty fun video where she tried to identify books on her bookshelf while she was blindfolded, so just by feel. There was one part in her video and where she talked about sniffing books.
Did you just smell it?
No. Oh yeah, smells graphic novel-y to me. What's a graphic novel I like?
Now in that clip, she was making light of it, but this is actually something that I've wanted to make a video about for quite a while because I smell books. And my family, it drives them crazy. They think I'm some kind of weirdo because anytime I get a new book, the very first thing I do is I smell it. And I want to make sure that I'm not the only one out there, so I wanted to make a video about this asking you guys, do you guys do this also? So, this is actually an old yearbook of mine, but whenever I get a new book, I give it a sniff. Because, let me explain why. I started losing my sight around age 11, so before that I was 20/20 and I could read and everything fine, I could see fine. As I started to gradually lose my sight, you know, reading books, slowly the book kept getting closer and closer and closer until my nose was right in the book. So you can't help but smell the book. You can't help but notice what that book smells like. And the smells, it's much like, you know, you walk into a restaurant and you're like, oh, they're making something that my grandmother used to make. And it instantly triggers that memory of your grandmom being in her kitchen when you were a kid. And that fond, wonderful memory. Well, that's what sometimes books do for me. It triggers that memory of that wonderful time when I was younger reading that book. And so, in chasing those memories, I'm constantly smelling books. And like I said, it drives my wife and my kids crazy, especially when we're in a bookstore and they're like, stop smelling all the books. Like, I can't help it. It's like an addiction. I have to smell the books. But that brings me to the other topic of today. Well, first of all, do you guys do that too? I can't be the only crazy person out there smelling books. Now, the drawback to that is because I'm constantly, the way I use my magnifier now, once again, if I need to see something, use my magnifier to read something, I don't hold it down like people traditionally do. I put it up by my eye and I bring the paper or the book or whatever right up to my eye. Now, as a result of that, once again, my nose is right next to that object and I'm smelling what it smells like. The drawback to that is the worst thing, and you guys leave a comment down below if you can relate to this, menus. Menus at restaurants stink. Oh my lord. Which makes sense. I mean, they wipe the tables off, they wipe the chairs off and all that, but they oftentimes don't wipe the menus off. Or maybe it's once a week or something like that, but I've had some pretty stinky menus before, and it's like I'm not even gonna try because I can't have this right next to my nose. So you guys let me know if you can relate to that. But that brings us to the other part of this video. It's kind of a book recommendation. Going along with my weird smelling of books, the best smelling book I have ever smelled is this graphic novel series right here. Casey also talked about graphic novels. She had a couple in her video and she talked about how she loved graphic novels. And this series right here, it's called ElfQuest. It's by Wendy and Richard Penny. It's from the 70s and the 80s. It's an amazing whole series. They have a whole comic book line, and these are the graphic novels based on the comics, but they are just incredible. The artwork is incredible. The story is incredible. I remember reading these. I got these probably when I was in elementary, and my stepmother got these for me and my sister actually, and I can just remember sitting in a chair, diving into this story and living in this world, and I loved it. So what is the story of ElfQuest? There's this group of elves, and these elves live in the forest. They're like woodland sprites, you know, the fairy tales that the old folk talk about. It's kind of like that's where these stories came from. It was these elves. So they live in the woods, they live in trees, they're small, they ride wolves. In fact, that's what the tribe is called, the Wolf Riders. And they have a leader, his name's Cutter, and he's a young chieftain, and he's kind of unsure about, you know, leading this group. His parents pass away unexpectedly, and he's forced into this role. But they have to leave the woods, they have to leave the forest because of certain situation. And so it starts this quest to find a new place to live. There are 4 graphic novels in the original quest, which spans like the first 20 comics or something like that. But that's the original quest, is finding a new place, a new home. And they run into other groups of elves, some good, some bad. They run into trolls. I mean, there's a lot of adventure and humor and fun, and it's just a great story. Heartwarming, it's very kid-friendly. There is a scene in one of the last books that's a little, you know, on the bit of a racy side, but it's not too bad. The elves have this big old party and everybody's drinking, and you know, one thing leads to another, but it's not too bad. Just keep that in mind. But the rest of it is definitely family friendly. It's kind of swords and sorcery, magic. Now, to illustrate how much I love these books, well, first of all, book number 1 is missing, and I'm getting really stressed out about that. In preparation for this video, I pulled out all the books, and I can't find number 1. It's book 1. It's called Fire and Flight, and it's somewhere in the house. I just gotta find it. I know I have it. I just gotta find it. But to show you guys how much I love these books, this is book 2. It's called The Forbidden Grove. I have 3 copies of this graphic novel, all exactly the same. 3 copies. Book 3 is the Siege at Blue Mountain. I only have 1 copy. Kind of low on that one. Book 4, The Frozen Mountain. I have 2 copies. I think the idea of these books are not very common. You can find them on eBay. They're kind of expensive because they're all old, especially these. These are all original printings. And so whenever they come available, if I find them at like a used bookstore or something, I snatch them up because they're not out there very often. So I think the idea was I would get a complete set to give to each of my kids and maybe each of my nephews. I've kind of slacked off on that. I need to get back on that quest. See what I did there? But this is books 1 through 4 with 1 missing, of course. There's also books 5, 6, 7, and 8. They are the second quest. And apparently, I haven't kept up with the story, but in later years, in the 90s, they came out with a 3rd quest, and maybe even a 4th quest. They've had tons of spin-offs in the ElfQuest world, but this original quest, the original books from the 80s, I believe it was the 80s, was definitely my favorite. I recommend them. Check them out, guys. They're not easy to find. Of course, they're not going to be on audio. I, unfortunately, can't read them anymore. I can't see well enough to enjoy them, which is heartbreaking for me. But I can still smell them. Oh, I love that smell. Check it out, guys. The art is amazing. Wendy Penny is the artist. Richard is the main author, the writer, and Wendy also wrote stories, but Wendy Penny did all of the art of these original books, and the art is just incredible. If anybody has kids and they're kind of leaning towards wanting to be an artist and they like fantasy genre books, these would be a must-have, I think. They've made reprints. You don't have to get the originals. They've made reprints of these that are going to be cheaper and much more common, so you can do that, but I love them. So, you guys, let me know, have you ever heard of ElfQuest? Probably some of you have. It's actually, in the comic book world, it's actually pretty well known and well respected. They're just amazing books, amazing stories. So let me know in the comments down below, or once again, big question of the day, are you a book sniffer? Like me? Book sniffers unite. We need to stick together and come out of the darkness, come out of the shadows. We don't need to be ashamed of our affliction anymore of sniffing books. So let me know, guys. Well, thank you very much for watching. Happy Memorial Day to everybody living in the States. As always, if you have any questions, let me know down below. If you liked the video, be sure to hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with all the videos coming out in the future. Thanks, guys. Sam with The Blind Life. I'll see you next time.